Amazing, right? Up until this point, Jeb has done everything he can to separate himself from his brother George W. Bush's disastrous 8 years as president. Just a few months ago, for example, he went out of his way to say during a speech at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs that he was his own man and that his family's track record didn't say anything about what he would do as president.
Look, just for the record, one more time, I love my brother. I love my dad. I actually love my mother as well. I hope that's okay. And I admire their service to the nation and the difficult decisions that they had to make. But I'm my own man, and my views are shaped by my own thinking and my own experiences.
The irony, of course, is that Jeb owes everything to his last name. His connections, his money, the very fact that he's taken seriously as a candidate, they're all because his last name is Bush. If his last name were anything other than Bush, he wouldn't get anywhere near the amount of attention he's getting. But even so, being the brother of the guy who got us into the Iraq mess is something voters actually do care about, which is why Jeb has tried really hard to distance himself from W and W's policies. And that's what makes what he said to Megyn Kelly about invading Iraq so surprising. It's a big break with his campaign strategy so far, which has been to sell himself as a moderate conservative who learned from the mistakes of the past. But here's the thing. If it is a break with campaign strategy, it's an honest break with campaign strategy, because Jeb Bush is not really a moderate. Like his brother and dad before him, he's a neoconservative extremist. The mainstream media has apparently forgotten this, but back in the late 90s, Jeb helped found the Project for a New American Century, or PNAC, the neocon think tank that called for the overthrow of Saddam Hussein and, well, pretty much every other government in the world that the U.S. doesn't like. According to PNAC, the end result of this massive regime change in Iraq would be a Pax Americana, in which the U.S. would dominate the world's natural resources, and the world's economy. Sounds like something out of a James Bond movie, but PNAC was very influential. Many of its founding members, like Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, and Zalmay Khalilzad, for example, went on to serve in the George W. Bush administration, where they helped plan the Iraq debacle. If history is any guide, these very same PNAC neoconservative extremists would also play a big role in a Jeb Bush administration. The Washington Post has put together a great graphic comparing Jeb's foreign policy advisors with the foreign policy advisors of the two Bush administrations and the Reagan administration. And that graphic makes one thing really, really clear. The same people who advised Ronald Reagan and both George Bushes on foreign policy are advising Jeb Bush on foreign policy. This group includes people like Paul Wolfowitz, yes, that Paul Wolfowitz, who are so tied to both PNAC and the nightmare of the Bush 2 years that just mentioning their names makes it feel like it's 2003 again. So while he can say whatever he wants about being a moderate, Jeb Bush is ultimately as extremist as they come. And if elected president, he'll run this country just like his dad and brother did, which means more wars and more neocon insanity. It's truly astonishing how frequently the press refers to Jeb Bush without ever referring to the fact that in 1998, when Bill Clinton was president, Jeb Bush, along with Paul Wolfowitz and all these other guys, the PNAC bunch, signed a letter to President Clinton saying, please invade Iraq and take down Saddam Hussein. And in the years since then, Jeb has been acting like, oh, that never happened. Really me? It was Jeb's idea before George was even a candidate for president.